Hey guys, it's Mila and I'm back with another video. Now I've decided to do something a little bit different for you guys. I love drawing faces, always have since I was a little kid, but there are certain features of the face that I enjoy drawing the most. One of them is ears. I don't know why, but I love drawing ears, and every time I draw an ear I get frustrated, but I just love drawing ears. Another thing is obviously eyes, but the nose is one of the things that I used to dread or probably spend the most time on. There's something about the fact that the nose comes forward and has all these different angles, it rounds off. Drawing noses for me is a great challenge when you're trying to do realism. So I thought I would draw different types of noses for you and just have a little doodle and show you how I draw when, well actually I'm lying, I never draw without being really detailed. So this is gonna be fun for me, so let's go. So we're starting out with the 2H and 5B pencil. I chose to only use those pencils because I wanted to show that you can really make a good drawing with limited tools. So with the 2H, obviously the H grades are a lot harder, the graphite is harder, so therefore it comes up a lot lighter. And then the 5B going up into the Bs is a lot softer, the pencil is a lot softer, the lead, sorry, and you're going to get a much darker tone and it goes on a lot easier, so it's good for shading and whatnot. So you really don't need a lot of different pencils, and the whole point of drawing all of these noses was just to show the differences in nose shapes and whatnot. It's not really a nose tutorial, it's just to show you when you're drawing different types of noses, there's a lot of similarities, a lot of things that you do that are the same, but just slight twigs here and there, like if the nose is pointing upwards or to the right or to the left. So that's why I've made this video for you. So we will start out with the outline. The outline is very important. You have to spend more time on the outline just purely because you want to get it correct. Now, as you can see with this nose, one side is slightly different to the opposite side, and there's a reason for that. It's because I drew it the way that I saw it. So it's important to follow exactly what you see in the reference picture. Also, when you first put down the outline, it's a very 2D image. It's very flat. As you can see, I just started laying down those lines again after shading it or rubbing it with the tissue paper, and you can tell that it looks pretty flat, but once you start adding all of the shadowing, all of the shading, you can see the difference. And then when you go with the black pencil, of course, you start to see more depth. So with these drawings, again, they were quite sketchy, but it was just to show how easy it really can be to draw different types of noses. I would have spent more time on them if this was an actual portrait, but I really just wanted to draw a whole load of different types of noses to show you what drawing noses is all about, really. It's everybody's nose is slightly different. I've got an identical twin and her nose is even slightly different to mine. So you will find that when you're drawing each person, you have to get their personality to pick up who they really are. You know, like when you do a commission portrait for somebody, you know, the person that is asked for the portrait knows the person. So if something isn't right, if you've just gone on your own whim and you can see that something's not exact, but you just go along with it anyway, that person is going to pick up on it and they may not be happy with the product. So you have to really pay attention to every little detail. That really is the secret to making things look exact and to make a drawing look just like a person. So with these noses, each nose is slightly different and they're all from different, very slightly different angles. This nose here, the septum was lower, so I really like the idea of drawing this nose because drawing the septum that low is probably unusual compared to how people would usually draw it. And when a person's looking straight ahead like that, some people do have the lower septum. So it was important to put this nose in there and show, even from the frontal view with the face at a normal height, not too high, not too low, just looking straight forward, you're going to see the septum drop on some people's noses. So this is what I mean by drawing different types of noses. You really have to pay attention to your reference picture, draw exactly what you see, and don't take any shortcuts. Obviously with this drawing, I did do it quite doodly, and I just want to point out here as well that this nose is very out of focus here and there. It was down to my camera and the fact that my hand was at the bottom of the drawing, so I apologise for that. But with that nose above, the septum being low was important to add that side of the nose. Now this nose that I'm drawing right now, it's as though the person's looking up. You can see up the nostrils, you can see just underneath the nostrils a lot more than you can on the other noses. So again, different types of noses, different shaped noses, and it's all about adding that shading. The most you'll see with these drawings is the shading. The shading is what brings a drawing to life. You have a 2D image when you do an outline. Even though the outline is the most important part of a drawing, it can't be everything. To make the image 3D, you have to add that shading, and you have to add it in the right places. Otherwise, you can draw the nose exact, you can do everything according to your reference, and still by getting the shading wrong you're going to show a different shaped nose, and a person would look at it and say that doesn't look like that person. So sometimes I won't even be able to put their finger on it, like I don't know why that doesn't look exactly like the person. The eyes are the same, everything looks the same, but it's just slightly off, and it's all down to the shading. The shading is everything. It's everything when it comes down to drawing. It's just everything. So you have to be confident, you have to know what you're doing, you have to feel confident when you're doing the shading, and always be confident that you can correct any mistake that you make. I do find that using a kneaded eraser is one of the best ways to lift skin tone, and if you've laid down some shading and you're not happy with it, use the kneaded eraser, flatten it on your desk, flatten it on any flat surface and use it, dab it across the paper, try to do it as evenly as you can, and you will be able to lift up that graphite. You may dirty your kneaded eraser, which is all part of the process, but you know, it's all part of drawing. You have to be willing to go in confidently, and if you make a mistake, correct that mistake, and preferably before you start using the black pencil. If you go in too dark, it's going to be a lot harder. So it's important to not put too much pressure on the paper. Don't damage the paper. If you look at the paper up close with the pencil, probably with a microscope or something, better to see that you actually indent the paper, and you cause a lot of damage by you putting the pencil across it. So it's always important to use a very light amount of pressure and not to cause any real damage to the paper. That way you can erase any problems, especially with shading. I tend to go in with a darker B, maybe like a 5B, and lay down the, you know, some rough pencils, lines and cross hatching, just to darken up that area. But then when I blend it, if I put too much pressure on with the B pencil, it's going to be harder to blend. So it's all about a very, very delicate touch, and shading is everything, guys. So when it comes down to shading, treat it differently to any other part of the drawing. So here you can see I'm just laying down the graphite because underneath this nose was very dark, and I'm just doing it all in layers. Everything when I'm drawing is layers. So it's important to just take your time and keep going over it to add those layers. And of course, me here blending it in with tissue, it's like a newfound love. I absolutely love using tissue. I haven't used it since I was a kid, but I've found it again, and I'm not going to stop. It's great for blending larger areas on the paper. Where the nostrils are, underneath there was darker, but the nostrils weren't as dark. So what I had to do was find a way to blend the darkness of the nostrils down into the part of the sides of the nostrils underneath. So it was very the process was really repetitive. It was very, you know, take your time, you know, put one layer down. I like to be confident, but I also like to be careful. So I was being very careful to just lay down some darker layers, blend it, then lay down those darker layers again. I was trying to get the nose to the tone that I wanted before I started highlighting, and I will use the kneaded eraser at some point here to start with some highlights, and just to get a feel. Every time I'm drawing a feature, I look up constantly at the reference picture. So where I'm just adding the darker areas here, and then sooner or later I'm going to pull out that kneaded eraser. I'm sure it's coming any moment, but I will pull out the kneaded eraser and I will just highlight certain areas, and then once again probably take the 2B pencil and start blending into those lightened areas. So it's all about looking up constantly and looking back at the drawing and asking yourself, does this look just like that person's nose? Are the shadows the same? Does that nose look like it's got a bit of a lump there, or does it look like it goes inwards there? Is the highlight light enough? Does the highlight blend into the skin tone enough? You know, it's all about paying attention to that reference, and the more you copy that reference, the more realistic the nose is going to become. And also I thought this one was interesting to draw because he had a nose ring, so obviously I don't think I've ever drawn a nose ring there before, so that's another reason why I did it. And I also used a mechanical 0.3 mechanical pencil just for that nose ring. So I thought I'd just add that information because I told you that I've only used 2 types of pencils here. So here we go with this nose. This nose, I was so excited to draw this nose. I actually searched the internet and I found some celebrity guy, I don't know what he was, I think he's an actor or something. But I found his image and this nose just stood out. I mean, it's very spherical, it's very circle. A lot of the shading here was just to make it look like a sphere, make it look rounded. And once I'd done that, obviously I was tempted to go with some pore detail, but I think I cleaned that up a little bit afterwards because, again, realising, Marie, it's not time to go in with all the detail, it's time to just do a quick sketch. But afterwards you'll find that I will go around the outside, here we go, around the outside of the nose with the kneaded eraser, because even though I needed to add shadow around the outside of the nose, to make it look spherical. Then I had to kind of follow the reference and realise that it was highlighted around the outsides of that circle. So yeah, that nose was really interesting. I don't think I've ever drawn a nose like that before. And this last nose here was of an actor again. I'm not sure his name, but he had a very interesting nose. It kind of pushed downwards, even though he was looking straight ahead. So a very low septum there. The sides of the nostrils going upwards. You cannot see up the nostrils at all. So I really wanted to draw this nose for you guys. But I hope so far you've enjoyed this drawing video. I have had some delays as to making my YouTube videos, and I'm happy to say I'm going to get back on it now. So just wondering what I'm going to draw next. And to see the behind the scenes and also the longer versions and more detailed versions of my drawings, please do go on over to my Patreon. The link is in the description of this video. And don't forget to subscribe to see more content from me. And I will see you next time.